Next on our list of alternative control flow structures is the for-each loop. The for-each loop differs from a for loop in that we do not provide a loop control variable that controls how many times the loop runs. Instead, we supply the for-each loop with a variable and a collection, and each element of the collection is put into the variable until we run out of items or elements in the collection. If that's not clear, it will be after an example or two. But let's look at the form of the for-each loop first, before we look at any examples. It starts out with the keyword for, followed by a variable declaration, followed by a colon, followed by a collection name. Now, a collection could be an array or an array list or some other type of data structure. And then inside the body will just be whatever set of statements we want to provide. And that's all there is. The way a for-each loop works is that internally, the compiler sets up something called an iterator that points at the first element of the collection and then moves through each successive element until there are no more elements left in the collection. So the iterator, which is internal, is keeping track of how many items are in the collection. We don't have to do that explicitly like we do with the for loop, where we work through the last element of an array or the size of an array list, those types of things. We don't have to do that. The for-each loop has an internal controller that keeps track of how many times to go through the loop. A main difference between a for loop and a for-each loop is that the for-each loop has to iterate through the entire collection, whereas with the for loop we could stop at any point we wanted to just by putting a limit on the loop control variable. So let's look at an example of how the for-each loop works. We'll start out by creating an array list of numbers. We'll make it integers. And then we're going to populate the array list with a set of numbers from 1 to 10. And we'll use a standard for loop to do that. Now let's return the items in that array list using a for-each loop. So here's how it works. The keyword for, followed by our variable declaration, in this case we'll say int num, followed by a colon, followed by the name of the collection, which in this case is numbers. And then we'll write system out print line num. And actually, let's put it on one line plus a space. And that's it. Notice how much less complicated the for-each loop is. We have a variable declaration and a collection name. And what happens is, for each element of the collection, that element is placed in the variable num, and then we can do whatever we want to with it in the body of the for-each loop, which in this case means we're just going to print it out. So let's compile and run that program. Whoops, I forgot to close my comment right here. Let's do that real quick. All right, so let's give it a shot. Clear the screen. Chapter 16, part 5.java. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you see that the for-each loop works similar to a for loop if we're going to work all the way through the collection, or in this case, the array list. But we don't have to worry about the size or how many elements are in the collection. We just simply are going to iterate through the whole array list with each element being stored in the variable num. We can also do this with an array just as easily. Let's modify this program. We'll comment it out and start over again. This time we'll create an array. I'll just use the number instead of a variable here to save a little time. We'll do 1 through 10 again this time, so we'll have to do I plus 1 since we started out at 0, which isn't a big deal. Now here's our for-each loop. Very same structure. In fact, we can just copy through the end of the comment. Let's save the file. Backdraw DOS window, clear the screen, compile, then run. Same result. So that works just as well with an array as it does with an array list. So again, the target for a for each loop can be any type of collection, array list, array, or other types of data structures. There's several that we haven't talked about that are beyond the scope of this course. And it will iterate through each element of that collection, storing the element in the variable that we declare in the first part of the for each loop. That wraps up our introductory discussion of for each loops. And what I want to do in the next lesson is talk about using for each loops with collections of class objects. So we're going to discuss that coming up in the next lesson.